Welcome to Better Being Me. I am your host, Joanne Hatchard. Better Being Me is all about celebrating the neurodivergent woman, learning how to be safe and secure enough to drop the masking, embracing the true version of who you are. My goal is to share my stories and those of other neurodivergent people that prove we are not alone in our difficulties. And together we can be celebrating how we have overcome our challenges and fully embrace our life. I want to promote our unique perspective of the world. Thank you for coming back for Talking Twaddle. Today I have with me the beautiful Jasmine Deakin. That's right, isn't it? Jasmine, I met through her role as a support coordinator. She works with Sunny Spectrum Supports, and they actually offered me a place on there. They won a raffle, is that right? For Purple Orange Workplace Inclusion Training, and they went, "We're only little, let's invite everybody." And I went, "I'm only little, I shall also join you." And we have become kindred spirits since.
Oh, it was so awesome. You know, one of those things where, you know, there was like another workshopy thing, and basically it was one of those, put your hand up, answer the question. Me, naturally, taking notes of all the things that they're saying, are like, I know the thing, not thinking I'd win anything or anything. They're like, "You've just won, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, ooh, how amazing. And then it was, it's like 30 people or something. So we got to invite, you know, a bunch of neurodivergent businesses, and we all put our heads together and chatted, and it was really cool.
It was pretty cool because it almost became like an instant community, didn't it?
Yeah.
You've moved on to work with at least 4 or 5 of those people as well.
Oh, that's it. Like, we all ended up chatting for like a couple hours after, and you know, we were talking about what we were doing at Sunny Spectrum, and you know, we were all just so excited about what we were all doing. And it was really fun to have that sort of space to share our projects and our interests that often can tie into, you know, the businesses that we create.
Especially when we're working for ourselves, right? There's no way in hell that we'd be creating a business that we don't want to be in. So
exactly.
Yeah. This is, I think, a perfect space for neurodivergent people to be if they can self-employ or find an employment through their own passions. Then life becomes so much easier. I know.
That's it.
I don't know about your work history, but I worked in corporate for many years.
Yeah, right.
Struggle to get into work on time and to meet the expectations of being present and being friendly and doing all the things and making sure it was different every day and all of the stuff. And now I work for myself. I pick one outfit for the whole week.
And every client sees it just once. See, it's a new outfit.
And it's so much easier.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, and there's so many things, you know, when you're in a neurodivergent business or you run your own business, you know, you can have those accommodations at the ready. You can, you know, do what you need to do to get through the work week. And I've just found that with that has just like so much more capacity to take stuff on, that before it was like just a lot, and it was just this constant rat race and this constant like masking and all of that it's like, you know, we're in the office just being like, and it's fine. It's just, you know, authenticity. It's great.
And it's so much easier, I think, to work with your neurokin, right? Everybody's got their strengths and weaknesses, but we tend to find people that balance us out, if that makes sense. What I don't have, I look for in other people.
And that's it. And that's where, like, Tammy, who I work with, who's sort of the partner in crime with Sunny Spectrum, she's like very business minded, and like I, you know, more the social worky and, I don't know, therapist-y minded, although I don't really call myself a therapist. But with that, it's just been so amazing because we've been able to put those strengths together, and we've learnt that we've basically got like the same neurotype, but it's kind of like the more introverted and more extroverted versions as well. So it's so cool because it's like I, get all up in my brain and hyper reflective and, map everything out. But then it's like, but I'm not very business minded and wouldn't know how to share the thing anywhere. So it was like, well, then Tammy's like, cool, I can do this, let's go. And it's like, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And together you've created such a magnificent little business. It's not even little. It's expanding so
the growth quickly. We weren't ready, but we're going. It's happening. But yeah, it's so cool. We've got a whole bunch of neurodivergent team members now as well, mostly mentors. We've also got a counsellor from Deep Seas who's really amazing as well. And it's just this awesome space. Like, to be in a fly on the wall in our team meetings is great as well. Like, we're all just ourselves and we can share our interests and ideas and think of programs where it's like, I'm really into this. How could we support someone who's really into this as well? And it's just so fun.
How did you get, because I love other social workers and specifically neurodivergent social workers. I think because of the breadth of social work, it suits our brains brilliantly. Yeah. Like, we can pick and choose kind of where our passions lie, and there'll be surprise, a job at the end of that kind of thing. Mm. How did you get into social work? Because mine was a deviated tour. What about you?
So, finished high school, didn't really know what I wanted to do. Being very academic, I was always sort of encouraged to go and do further study and, so capable, all of that. So I kind of started exploring courses and kind of knew, wanted to like help people, which is the most basic way to describe social work. But where it was like, I guess where I deviated from maybe some of the other professions was, and particularly psychology actually, was again, not labeling myself as a therapist. I really found that an interesting phrase to describe myself. And I really didn't want to have all the answers because I didn't really feel like I'd have them. But I think that's where that comes with experience, where now I do have some answers at least. But the other big part of it as well, where social work really drew me in, was figuring out how the world worked. It was just this whole like who's, what's, when's and why's of this whole universe as I've just turned into an adult from leaving high school. What do with all of this? So I didn't even really have a career goal with it. I was just kind of was like, oh, you can transfer degrees and you can transfer subjects if I don't like it. Loved it. Absolutely just soaked it all up like a sponge. It just blew my mind again. Like, you leave that degree probably with more questions than answers about how the world works. But at the same time, there was just so much depth to the world and how people interact and how people, perceive different things that are just, it was amazing. And all the unlearning as well was really huge. Like I was even saying this recently, that it felt like doing the social work degree was like all about unlearning, and then the learning only kind of happened when I actually entered the industry, kind of thing. Like, you just, you're a new graduate, I've unlearned all the biases and prejudices and all the things, and then you kind of go in and learn. So yeah, it was a really cool journey. I think I deviated a little bit, but we got there in the end.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest skills that the social work degree gave me was that use of self.
Yeah.
I think everybody should have that. Specifically, I think neurodivergent people should really do the use of self.
Yeah.
Because as a concept, it is just for everybody else. It is understanding, basically, like you were saying, understanding your biases, your triggers, your emotional reactions, and utilizing them in a way where you're not projecting onto clients is its point.
Yeah.
But I think in the real life, it can be utilized in a way so you can see who is you and separate yourself from trauma and, you know, starting to embrace emotions as that is all they are, just passing through energy rather than things that I need to hide from or, you know, dumb down or as in
like suppressed and, you know, all of that, which, it usually that never ends well as well. So the quicker that you figure that out and find space for that, whether it's, you know, as neurodivergents, for example, having a little sensory nook with a weighted blanket and my cloud sack and galaxy light and fidgets, a big box of fidgets and stuff. It's like, if that's, you know, what you need, if it's just holding space for yourself, being more compassionate, reflecting and checking in about how you're perceiving something, I guess the actual and perceived.
Yeah.
There's just so much there. Yeah. It's amazing.
Brought so much, just that little bit brought so much into the work that I do now. Because even though, when did I finish? Like 2011, I finished my master's and Gilbert was diagnosed, I've got no idea, 13? No, hang on. When he was 3 and he was born in 2014, 4, 5, 6, 7, so 2017. Oh gosh.
I think I say at least once a week, if not once a day. I didn't get into my job for the maths.
No. I ran out of fingers.
Like doing social work, it's like there's probably an 80% chance you're really crap at math. No science, no maths, you know, no medicine.
And even that,
doctor. No.
Statistically, that may be off a little bit if a social worker's done the math. But it wasn't until kind of I entered the realm of, you know, the self-identification, because that comes before the fall, right? It was that use of self skill is what pulled me out of a big hole of bullshit.
And that's it. And that's where, you know, all of those skills, it's really like, it's just a breakthrough in perspective. And it just, it's almost like enlightenment, isn't it? But yeah, it's really cool. And then to sort of, I guess, go from there to then being able to share those perceptions or perspectives with other people, you know, reframing things or exploring things a little bit deeper, you know, taking things away from, I guess, all of that, like, what's it, like self-help propaganda? Did you ever look into that sort of stuff?
It never resonated with me as much as other people, because I can't even remember the rules that they make up.
Oh, it was just all that stuff around, you know, all these self-help books and stuff, how to live and how to do this and all of that. And it's all about you fixing something in your life. And it's basically just comes back to this weird, like, gaslighting moment of things are your fault. Yeah. And you have to change them, where it's like social work was really, you know, and a lot of what I do even now is like, what's actually around you creating a barrier? What's, you know, if we think about what walls building up around you from things in your environment or in your family situation or in the systems of, you know, government or whatever, where it's like there is just so much more than just someone not trying hard enough. Yeah, it's a vibe.
We all just tried harder.
That's it.
Just be more anxious and still not doing anything.
Yeah, let's all just burn out. How about that?
And I think there was a freedom in social work that psychology didn't bring as well, is what
that's definitely true as well. And that's where I liked that you could explore a bit of a niche. And that, I guess with I mean, there's the duty of care in any role working with people, but I just found it quite, I don't know what the word is, intimidating, I guess, of like diving into someone's brain so deep, and it being really like a medical model as well, around, having a disorder, which, both diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, but it's, that's where I didn't want to be that person that was deciding people were disordered or that they had something wrong with them, or, and whether it's a report or saying that to someone. But I found that social work was so much more positive, even though we look at some really tricky stuff in our roles as well.
Yeah, and I think social work compared to psychology, whenever I had therapy sessions, they never gave me feedback. They never said, well done, Joanne, you're doing right. I'm like, yay, I'm doing therapy, good. They never, it wasn't reciprocal. It was just a one-way me going, I'm not entirely sure what you want to hear, so let me make up a story for you kind of thing. Whereas
almost even with that, it was like I did therapy good, almost like going to therapy is a skill that you needed to learn. And it's interesting because, I mean, I've been with my psychologist since I was about 17, and I'm 27 now. It's like, we were like, oh my God, she's not a little baby anymore. Like, it's really interesting because I just had my birthday and we were like, she's like, when did that happen? But it was a very interesting journey from, going through a lot of trauma sort of in my childhood and in my teen years, unpacking that. And then I got to 25 and it was like, brain's fully developed, trauma resolved. What is happening here? That, it's cool that I could have that journey, but at the same time, the model of psychology is just not for me.
Yeah.
Finding that one autistic psychologist was for me. But apart from that, not for me.
Yeah. And was 25 when you got diagnosed?
Yeah, 25. Yeah. So a couple years ago, it would be about maybe a year and a half, because I think it was like late 25, but a little while ago. I mean, it was a lot of thinking for probably like a year or two before that, a lot of researching, which I think is really common with late diagnosis, is that you basically have diagnosed yourself already 10 times over before you actually get the official one. It was a big journey. It was really, really interesting and just so validating. It was, it was like a celebration. It wasn't a grieving event for me, which for some it is, but it was a huge moment of, really being able to find myself. And then as I went through that journey of validating the things that I had already explored, there was that little bit of a missing piece when I'd gotten the supports in place. And then it was like, hello there, neighbor, ADHD. So that came pretty much 6 months after or something like that. And then, I've just been working through that ever since. I wouldn't say really working now. I've kind of come to some sort of place of compassion and accommodation, working at Sunny Spectrum, for example, being with my neurokin, got a super affirming partner, things like that. They've all sort of fallen into place along the way. So it's been a really cool journey for me.
Yeah. And I think the work that you did to unpack any trauma is probably made the next step so much smoother by comparison.
Yeah.
If you'd found your psychologist who diagnosed you as autistic before you worked through the trauma, a lot of that trauma might have been passed off as autistic traits.
Yeah, definitely. Where, everything was, I guess, seen as trauma first, which, like a lot of women, you get the depression, anxiety, PTSD diagnosis, BPD, where, that was my experience, and it didn't affirm my identity, which was the later journey, but it did hold the space for a lot of that to be validated, and to work through that. And, like anyone who's experienced trauma, you still have your triggers, you still have things that will bring you back to that place and whatever, but on the whole, it was cool to get to a place where I can be comfortable with that. And then I think that even within myself made the autism diagnosis so much more, I don't know, again, words, but like authentic, I guess, because I think if I hadn't, as you said, I hadn't worked through that, kind of vice versa, I would have gone, oh, but that's just my trauma. That's just a trauma response.
Yeah.
Where it was like, well, I've resolved it now. I'm 25, my brain's fully developed. You know, depression and anxiety medication isn't working for me. What is happening? And then, yeah, it was really, really fast journey. Like I had to keep up with it a lot, but you know, I'm definitely grateful for it.
Yeah. And once you get that relief, I guess, or the piece of paper or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Congratulations, you're autistic. Yeah, you've passed. Well done.
Make a cake. I've actually seen that on the internet where someone made a cake. They're like, congratulations on the autism.
Yeah.
But it is a theme that we even touch on in our work as well, that, you know, for a lot of families, you know, particularly parents of young children, but even older as well, there can be a process of like almost grief around that experience. I wouldn't even say almost, it is.
It is grief.
But really, you know, where you can, reframing and exploring that by having that diagnosis, you know how to find yourself and find your identity and find what you need to accommodate for that. And for that person, there's a sense of identity and connection or neurokin that can be found from that. And if we think about, you know, what would be the worst sentence, I guess, like if we go your sentence to life, I would find that most of these people would probably fare worse being undiagnosed and undersupported and unseen than having the diagnosis, though the label is scary.
The label can be scary. And I think when we use the old reference of what autism means, that's where the fear is coming from.
Oh, that's it.
And often they neglected to say that when we see somebody in the media that is autistic, that they also have co-occurring conditions, including most often is an intellectual disability that they show.
Yeah, exactly.
And they forget to detach for the community that these two things are separate, and that you can be autistic without an intellectual disability, or you can be intellectually disabled without being autistic. So it's all an unknown for the population if that's all they see is that
exactly. And there's so many stereotypes, and I think, you know, along the journey, and I think, you know, from pre-diagnosis days, I think it's something that I probably had looked at quite, I guess, frequently, in that, you know, like once a year something might pop up, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's kind of autistic of me too. But then I kind of was like, am I just doing that kind of like normalization thing that neurotypical people do? And then it was kind of also, I guess, the denial as well around being hyperverbal, hyper-reflective, hyper-empathetic, that when I didn't have that education about what autism really is, I just went, well, I can't be then. I can't be. So, it's really interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, stereotypes are existing for a reason, but it doesn't mean that that's all there is. I think. Was it Judy Blume wrote a book somewhere along the line, and I can't remember if it's There God It's Me, Margaret, or if it was something else, but there was an autistic child in there who was nonverbal and regressing, and a boy. And that was what I had for like, I don't know how many years in my head of that's what that was. And the shame that it brought on the family, etc.
Yeah. And very similar for me as well, you know, a male stereotype, and I guess the phrasing of, what is it, planes, trains and automobiles sort of thing, you know. You just imagine that, you know, young boy with the, you know, the planes hanging off the roof and the, you know, trains lined up or whatever it might be on the bookshelf, and, you know, your knowledge before sort of learning and working with these people, which I have for a fair while across my career. When that's kind of the limit to your understanding, you can see where a lot, you know, obviously is missed, you know, whether it's within yourself or when you interact with other people who are autistic or you work with them. It's a shame, but we're getting there, I guess.
Different feeling of when you can communicate easily. Like, it just feels so different, doesn't it? When you can, where everybody, you're probably not speaking in a linear way, but everybody's following what you're doing or what you're saying.
Yeah.
That they can. And instead of having to go back and correct yourself all the time and make the conversation linear, they're just right there next to you going, yeah. And then what about?
Yeah.
I think that's what is so relieving and makes me so happy.
And that's it, by, you know, finding that, I guess, neurokin, whether it's, you know, like people like yourself, you know, working with Tammy, even by being, you know, Sunny Spectrum, where we work with neurodivergent people, and like obviously they don't all have the same lived experience I do, but it is just a wavelength, isn't it? It really, you know, and if you don't have that wavelength instantly, it's easier to find it almost. Where even if it's like, okay, that's not how I naturally communicate, but I can see why you're doing the thing, or I can see what purpose that serves, and then you can figure it out.
And it's I remember, I mean, because everybody's different, right? Just because you're autistic doesn't mean we're going to get along, but it is like we're almost 10 steps ahead of a neurotypical person in understanding where another neurodivergent person is coming from.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest trends that I want to see eradicated is when autistic clients or autistic participants are being used as their therapist's education. So if they're going to a neurotypical therapist, instead of them getting the support and the help that they need without having to explain what autism is, they're spending so much time and energy and appointments in explaining what their internal autism means for them.
And that's so interesting you say that, because, you know, even Tammy and I have had discussions around, you know, we've got heaps of, you know, brilliantly I guess, intended and qualified, you know, speech therapists or OTs or psychologists, that autism doesn't cover, university doesn't cover autism at all. You know, when you look at it, and even if they do, it'll be like, I don't know, a sub-document of other diagnoses or something and a little, I don't know, paragraph. But considering the high cohort of, you know, whether it's NDIS participants or, you know, other that are accessing these services now, like we're not, you know, OT isn't just like work cover anymore. It's, you know, when there's, what was it, something like 72% of NDIS participants are neurodivergent in some sort of way. And autistic, you know, I think makes up like half of them if we count, you know, most common
co-occurring conditions.
I guess it's sort of like I think where I was going with it was the primary diagnosis as well. It only covers that. So but yeah, it's just like, how can all these people be working with us and you know full well that your caseload or your, you know, manager or whatever, you know full well that your caseload is going to be, let's say, 70% neurodivergent, that there's just no knowledge. And that's where, you know, us educating is, you know, so important. And from a lived experience perspective as well, you know, I know you do a lot of work in that space, you know, educating people around it. And at Sunny Spectrum, we've got our, neurofaming practice workshop, which, it's just been so good to just unpack the 101 of it and really hold space, when we go, we're comfortable in our identity and, we're the professionals, we're here to educate you. Treat it like an ABC show of, you can't ask that. Be respectful, of course, but just go for it. We'd rather you do it with us than fumble with one of your clients. So if there's something you want to know or something you wondered if you screwed it up, ask us and then we can tell you. And of course, we can't speak for other clients, but we can at least figure out maybe where you went wrong or what you're not sure about.
Yeah. Unpack it and repack it. And I'm pretty sure.
And put it all back together again, like you say.
I'm pretty sure you're very similar to me in that you're pretty good at the translation from neurodivergent to neurotypical. You can pull apart the story and find all the meaning and then create the linear story that is understood, which is perfect for the training that you're doing, the neuroaffirming workshops and stuff.
And that's where I guess that social work where we were touching on before is so good, because that reflection around the perceptions and perspectives and what sort of, education has someone had about it. Let's assume none, for example, that you can really start to figure out, even if someone, I guess, said a doozy, that you go, well, hang on here, I'm not offended, I'm not upset, I can see where you're coming from, I can see why you might ask that question, and then we can unpack it. So yeah, it is, it's really cool. And sometimes it takes a lot of work to interpret neurotypical, but I'm usually better at it when it's just dialogue stuff. I'm not, there's the whole what's that? I've read this as well. I can tell I'm being sarcastic because I'm doing it. But when someone else being sarcastic, I'm just like, yeah, that's okay. You're serious.
Sure. Whatever.
Be like, oh, can you do this? And the old one where it's like, oh, can you help me with this? No. And it's sarcastic. And I'm like, oh, why not? I need your help. Can you help me? And then they're like, heck. It's like,
that's just
you said no. But yeah.
Language is fun. I think one of my concerns around the neuroaffirming training and stuff is that people assume that once they've done their weekend warrior work, it's done. Whereas it's a whole shift of attitude and perspective that you don't get just because you've done the weekend.
Yeah. And that's a lot of what we highlight as well is, it's about putting on a lens. Like when we think neuroaffirming practice, for example, if you do what you did with Billy, it's not going to work with Bob. It is about having a lens and seeing that person for their true self, their identity, their needs, the fluctuation of needs and experience as well. It's having that lens to see that as the first step, rather than it just being about, I ticked the box, I did the course, I am neuroaffirming now. It is an active, dynamic thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think the more, it's even once you've got the diagnosis, once you've self-identified, once you've embraced that part of self, it also then there's a personal journey that needs to happen before you can be considered an expert as such.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, there's still and it's so typical of a neurodivergent to go, okay, I'm done now. I'm it.
Yeah. It's just static now. It's like, no. Just wait for a change. We love that. But yeah.
And I think that's one thing that a formal diagnosis I've seen has gifted some people, is that now they can embrace that part of self. What am I trying to say exactly?
Or even kind of like, I mean, are you talking like unmasking? I mean, a lot of people kind of don't see it that way, but I have gone through a journey of unmasking, and it is something that I find really interesting, that I guess thinking of it like masking and unmasking, you know, even Tammy and I have reflected that really a lot of it is about your awareness around that as well. It's not something that you just go like, I'm going to do the autism now, and then I'm just going to do the neurotypical. Although it can be, sometimes it's more just about being aware, even when you're slipping back into, you know, overuse of energy, trying to, you know, justify being I guess not being yourself, or being yourself. But yeah, it's a really interesting idea. I'm not sure where you were going with it. I kind of just ran with it. You're welcome.
Thank you. That's kind of where I was aiming at, whereas, you know, just like the neuroaffirming training over a weekend doesn't make you neuroaffirming practice. Just because you've got a diagnosis doesn't mean you've stopped unmasking, like stopped masking. There is still such a journey in that whole process. So yes, you've explained what I was trying to say quite nicely. Thank you.
I just knew. This is so unscripted, but we're just on a vibe, aren't we? But yeah, I mean, it is so interesting because like, you know, I mean, obviously late diagnosed, right? Heavy masker. And like, I can remember even as a young kid rehearsing facial expressions for hours and just thinking that's how people figured out how to express themselves. And just to think that, you know, build all of that up, and how exhausting it is, whether it's the practicing, the scripting, actively doing it. It's just like, oh my gosh, the cognitive load of all that, that it's just being able to just let it go a little bit. And that's finding the right people, the safe space to do that as well. You know, it's not something where you just, you know, do that and become, I don't know, excluded from something because it doesn't feel safe or you're not around the right people. But, you know, for example, whether it's, you know, your partner learning more about you, or your friends, or, you know, being in a community space around people with a similar experience, it's just the best thing to be able to just use half the energy that you would with everyone else.
Yeah, I think so I used to practice my one eyebrow raise. That's what I used to
I love that.
And dimples, I used to, so I don't naturally have dimples, but I think
I have one.
Yeah,
I got one.
that's my facial practicing. But if you say that to a group of people that never practiced a facial expression, then they're kind of like, well, why?
Yeah, doesn't it just come naturally? Like, doesn't your face just do the thing? And it's like, yeah, but when it does, it's like, or just blank. It's like either you're just gonna get blank, or it's gonna be like. So it's like, no, I kind of got to try and learn how to do, I guess, what people can interpret, because neither makes sense. But yeah, and then there's, you know, going to school photos, for example, and just for hours, muscle memory of your smile for the school photo. And then every single school photo is me like,
yes.
And it's just like, oh my God, I spent so much time on that, and all my school photos are so embarrassing.
I was in a couple of weddings, and they would say to me, both brides actually said to me, Joanne, could you practice your photo face, please? Because I was so well known for having just a ridiculous face every time a camera went on. Mouth was open, the eyes would overly, I don't know. And I wasn't even trying to do it. I was trying to smile at the right time. But my timing and the camera going off were apparently off by about 3 seconds.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah. And it is, isn't it? It's just such a weird concept of having photos taken of you or taking photos. Like the amount of photos or memories, and it's so nice when people have all these photos, but it's like there's the expression and all of that stuff that you have to figure out to make the photo what other people's photos look like.
Yeah.
And then there's just being so stuck in an experience, forgetting to document it as well, that it's like all these people, how do they have photos of their holiday? The one time that I did that and I took photos of my holiday, I half experienced, like I missed so much of it because I was taking photos of everything.
Yeah.
It was just, it's so weird.
I was at Yellow Ladybugs conference yesterday.
Yeah.
And all of these amazing speakers, and because I was a speaker, I got to talk to all the other speakers as well.
Awesome.
I don't have a single photo with any of those people that I admire greatly. I caught up with Gilly from that's my dog, Gilly from Neurodivergent Research, and we had dinner the night before. So we do have a photo together. And I took a photo of her with her special t-shirt on. And I took a photo of every speaker that came up. But when it was my chance to have like a selfie with them or whatever, completely forgot. I was just making stories and giggling and not doing my social media, but very good
having the full experience, but then not much to show for it. Damn it.
I'm a little bit tired today. But even that experience of having the Yellow Ladybugs conference out in the world and name getting well known is
I
think Sunny Spectrum Support and Yellow Ladybug should have a meeting. Yes,
hook us up.
See what I can
do. I mean, it's so cool because a lot of what we do at Sunny as well is, well, what we aim to do is, I guess, is really build up the idea that autistic people can thrive. We're not just surviving out here. Like, we're successful business people. We're, parents. We're, community members and activists. Like we're here. We're not just people hiding away with too much sensory input and unable to communicate. We are the people that can drive the change for us as well.
Yeah. I think that would be a good pairing.
Yeah, I'm here for it. That was probably one of the first organizations, I guess, that I guess explored when sort of starting to dabble with the autism stuff. So it's interesting.
Same here, because I tend to, rather than dive into a community to get information, I tend to hold back and decide what I just think for myself first, and then find the community that match. That's how I used to do my research papers as well. Decide on what I thought about that and then find the paper that matched it.
I was much similar.
It's so much easier. And I do remember the 3 years ago when the Yellow Ladybugs had their online conference. That was the light bulb moment for me of, these are people I want to be working with for around.
Yeah, and that's it. It's just, again, that sort of neurokin stuff, right? Starting to connect with people with that, they get it. Yeah.
And that was my first foray into finding my community, actually. So.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think the first neurokin experience for me, and where I guess some of the exploring, but a lot of it was more like client stuff, like I guess how to work with autistic people at that time, was kind of realizing how much it was coming naturally. And it was just like a strange concept. I just thought for some reason I just seemed to work really well with autistic people, because I've worked in disability my whole career.
I am.
I started as a support worker, when I was in uni, part-time job, and just went from there. And so it was really interesting from straight to those days all the way through until my diagnosis, seeing this pattern and seeing how, you know, that community of neurodivergent people were, you know, so, I don't know what the word is. Like I just felt like I could see them.
Yeah.
I think. And I didn't know why at the time. I just thought, oh, thanks, social work degree. You know, I figured out how the world works, and that ended up being autism. But it was like, yeah, then realizing after diagnosed and learning about neurokin, it's like, yeah, autistic people and typically ADHDers as well. It's like, that's because it was always here all along. Yeah.
You didn't build it and they came. It was already there. You just uncovered it.
That's exactly it. Yeah. So it was definitely a really cool, I guess, reflection because, and I think, I guess, like super positive and uplifting, but also it was kind of humbling as well that it's like, I'm not an expert professionally. That's the lived experience coming in.
100%.
You know, we do the whole, you know, bridging professional and lived experience in both of our roles, but really where the connection was coming from was the lived experience.
Oh, yeah. Yes. And I think that's where the imposter syndrome can come in, right? When we start to work in this area is, well, I don't have any formal training in autism, but also any formal training around autism at the moment is pretty shit.
Yeah.
Not
and that's it, isn't it? You know, and, you know, whether it's really crap or run by neurotypical people or written by neurotypical people, it's really difficult to find that out there. And that's where, you know, for example, the workshops we're putting together and things like that, they've been quite successful because people want to hear it from us. And it's so amazing that they do. You know, it's just so good that it's like, yeah, you know, we're here, we're out here sharing it rather than having people write, you know, a textbook about us. So, yeah.
Yes. My mind just went blank for a second. Hang on.
Bring it back around.
Yes. Oh, there we are. Thank you very much. But, and that imposter syndrome, like it's such a knee-jerk reaction to being unsure and needing to have an outside to quantify what we are feeling. Whereas once we've done the inner work, right, we recognize that lived experience is probably more beneficial than a textbook knowledge anyway.
Oh, and that's it.
It's been 100% true for my work with my clients that I might have actually lost my method or my process had I had more formal education around autism.
Yeah. Yeah, so I completely agree.
Embracing that lived experience as higher quality education than perhaps what has been put out there at the moment.
Yeah.
Also reflects on that imposter syndrome around, am I autistic or not, right? So we can pull through, if we've gone through the process or the self-identification of recognizing that, yes, that imposter syndrome is bollocks and that I am self-identifying correctly and moving forward, that can put a higher quality on the lived experience again. So well, at the moment, now I'm in a space where I don't doubt my understanding of information nearly as much as what I used to.
Yeah, I totally agree. If I was looking at, you know, doing this, I guess the way that we're working solely with neurodivergent people and mainly autistic people, doing that pre-diagnosis, this journey, I guess the solidifying of all the questions and it answer, you know, it's not really answering, it's just kind of like, I'm okay if that's unanswered as well. That you can, just really get to a place where it all comes together, and it's almost like a practice, rather than it just being, I guess, mirroring your personal journey.
I think just following on from that lived experience part, I value my opinion more now. Whereas in the past, I would have not shared my thoughts, gone home, researched it, checked to make sure it wasn't offensive to anybody, and then missed any opportunity to ask any questions or any like to expand in any subject.
Yeah.
Now I feel quite happy to blip stuff out and clean up the mess afterwards. If that
I love that. Yeah. And it is like that. And even where you do and you go blip, and then you're like, that kind of wasn't worded right, or whatever it might be. But it, you can hold space for that and hold space for yourself with that, rather than it being I must do the robot thing and give someone a perfect answer and a perfect solution. You can just get more curious and more explorative with your clients and people around you as well. It's being more unapologetic.
Yeah, and I think that beautiful shift of it's okay not to have the answer. And I don't pretend I've got knowledge, I've got information. I don't know the answers for everything though.
Yeah, and that's where I think there was a huge perspective shift from not wanting to do like therapy or psychology as having to have the answers, and then going through social work, and even then feeling like I had to have the answers. That I think that's been a really cool space that, has, I think, developed probably for me in the last couple years, where it's like, actually sometimes it's about holding space for not having the answers, being able to go, I don't know, but I can find someone who can. And it's been really cool because even working now, it's Tammy will be like, you're a therapist, right? Like, like we even when we talk and social work brain comes out, she's like, that's like therapy, right? I'm like, but therapy, it's still that internal, like, but therapists have to have the answers. They don't always have the answers. But then, it's really cool to be validated as well that, I guess that word doesn't have to mean that, and that I can do the thing.
It's only in the last 6 months, or not even that, like in the last month on socials, that I refer to myself as a neurodiverse family therapist. And it took me a year of calling myself a therapist just on my business card to kind of spread that out. And I was like, legally, am I allowed to call myself a therapist?
Well, that's it too.
What makes me a therapist versus not a therapist, because I'm a social worker. I'm not a psychologist. And knowing that anybody can call themselves a therapist didn't make me feel any better.
Yeah.
I'm like, I need rules.
Exactly, it is. And particularly where there's regulations, but there's also so much that's unregulated that it's so hard to find, I guess, like that boundary. I mean, and that's how I navigate a lot of my life, is that I need to know that boundary, because otherwise I'll just step over it unknowingly, and whatever that might be. So it's always about having that line, and where is the line? And then it's like, for example, when you might say, I'm an autism expert, like people have used that title, for example. It's like, but where's the line where I do have the lived experience and I'm a social worker, similar to you, where you can say that, but then I don't have knowledge of everyone's autistic experience. There's things that I still don't know about. So it's like, line, where are you?
That's it. And it baffles me that other people can call themselves a specialist with the same experience as me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
How do you go to sleep at night?
It's a little bit like that, isn't it? Yeah. And yeah, even that, I guess, even specialist, like you go therapist, makes sense if you're therapeutic and you've achieved outcomes or things with people, and maybe even checked in with your practice or had supervision to sort of validate that. But expert, that's a whole nother level. Like, I don't think I could sleep with myself at night calling myself an expert on anything.
No. No. Yeah, because you're like, well, what does expert really mean? Because to me, that means like you've garnered all the information that's available and you've processed
you know
it.
everything about it.
Yeah.
You know, like, that the information there is, like, of whatever topic it is, none of it's untouched.
Yeah.
And if someone brought anything up on that topic, you'd be like, oh yeah, I know about that. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know everything about anything. And I don't think anyone does, really. So who are the experts, and what does an expert mean?
What if I disagree with the expert? What does that make me? No.
Yeah, imagine that. Yeah, you disagree with the expert and you've got a founded knowledge base on that. Does that make you an expert because you disagreed with the expert? And they're wrong?
Entire wrong. The other work area that you and Tammy are doing is the NeuroWorks, which I think is the collaboration, absolutely brilliant idea. Did you want to flesh that idea out for anyone?
All right, quick snapshot. It's I guess really we were exploring the ideas of looking at workplaces holistically, and that that really vibed with the social worker in me. And even looking at it from a systemic sort of change point of view as well. We start with one person and, it might be a workplace, and then it could be an industry. And, obviously my social work brain again is going, systemic change, amazing, I'm so excited. But, it's baby days, but looking at really the idea being it's about meeting in the middle. A lot of autistic and neurodivergent people experience this, I have to come to the party with all the things, or I have to know what I need as well. So even if the employer's coming and offering something or whatever it might be, wanting to sort of explore where's the miscommunication, almost kind of like that double empathy problem, where it's like someone's trying to come on the autistic wavelength and someone's trying to come on the neurotypical wavelength, and then they're kind of still missing each other. Yeah. So we kind of looked at the idea that, it's really about supporting employers as well. Not just looking at it as, we're just going to build people's work skills and we're just, we'll just help them communicate with their boss better. Because that kind of, if we think of it theoretically, puts the onus on the neurodivergent person. So it was looking at, that's a part of it. But we look at, working with employers around optimizing workplaces, like environments, because a lot of the disabling factors can be environmental, if we're thinking right to the basics of sensory, but just even in terms of task optimization and executive function and things like that, that it was really looking at the workplace optimization, exploring the consultancy sort of level that could be offered as well. So, working with employers, going, they can, I guess, call NeuroWorks and say, hey, we've got an employee who's just disclosed they're autistic. We've never had an autistic employee before. How could we best support them? And whether that is in their, in their environment, with their management team, with their co-staff, it could be part of, I guess, training and practice. Or it could be the participant as well that's going, I'm thinking about disclosing it to my employer. How do I go about that? What are my rights? What accommodations can I ask for? So really just trying to see the whole picture of what employment is, because there's plenty of statistics out there around how employment affects us, whether it's work retention, burnout, job loss, whatever it might be, even if we're looking the other way of lack of opportunity to actually climb the ladder as well, that it's just, I think, just a really cool space to explore. So we're starting to, just really get in there, have a look, kind of tapping in with the SA autism strategy as well, where, their first steps are around education, but not too far to follow, will be employment. So we'll be ready.
Ready. And I guess it means that when I believe that autistic people specifically are underutilized within the workplace because of, like we're saying, the accommodation that are required, actually being able to ask for the services, the lack of shared jobs. So maybe the inability to work full time, but have the capacity to do job share. So 3 days.
Exactly.
Having those opportunities, even when the South Australian government went, we're employing more autistic people. If you looked at the jobs that they're offering.
I looked at a lot of that, through exploring this idea in the very, very early stages. And a lot of it was, must have like pretty much impeccable ability to communicate and brilliant administration and organization skills and ... of just basically looking at all the disabling factors of autism and going, we want autistic people who don't have any of that. Good luck finding that. Because if we either experience it or we're masking and we're going to burn out.
That's right.
Either way, not the employer you're looking for.
No. And I think that's, so very frustrating, because on surface level, they're publicizing, embracing autism, basically. And
so many people, even if they're not job searching and not actually clicking in, will be like, oh, wow, lovely. Isn't that so great? And it's like, but I'll just leave it there. I was going to try and use choice words.
No, but is a pretty, It's like on the surface level and the publicity side, like publicity, fantastic. Like we're putting our foot forward and we're doing all the right things. If you scratch that surface, you go, well, they're not actually providing, like I read through one of the job descriptions, and I'm a master educated social worker with lived experience, with many years of experience behind me, working in a corporate job, working in private practice. I couldn't do some of these, like I couldn't meet the criteria.
Oh yeah, and me neither. The only reason I guess meet the criteria professionally and haven't burnt out and I guess spiraled essentially, which I have. Look, the reason is because I'm being affirmed. I do have a safe space. I can, self-manage in a way that I need to. It's all feels comfortable to do, and not looked at in any other way than this is what makes you most productive. And this is great that you're doing that to be more productive, rather than looking at the, I guess, underproductivity. I don't think that's a word, but I tried. But even I guess coming back to the NeuroWorks thing, and I guess that phrasing around, thriving and not just surviving as well. A lot of it is around, finding space, whether it's in education and consultancy, for people who know their industry the best. So, for example, I've never been an electrician or a tradie in general. I've never ran a restaurant. But I'm sure there's an autistic person out there that runs an electrician business or runs a restaurant. They're going to know that work environment and that industry way better than some social worker who sits behind a desk or meets with clients and just worries about their own sensory experience and whatever when they step in a restaurant. That's about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think ADHD people do well in restaurants. That could be general.
Fast-paced, adrenaline.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
It's constant.
Mm.
Whereas I'm like, there's too many things coming at me at once.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Is unless there would be like a pattern.
Yeah.
Like that's where, like, for example, apart from working in a supermarket and it like being my first job ever, it being an overwhelming sensory experience. I even had some really like big somatic difficulties with that. But in terms of the job, it was like, oh my God, this is so not optimized for me. And obviously it's so early days where I just masked my way through it until I actually dropped physically.
Oh no.
But the pattern was what got you through, because it's like you kind of just go pew, 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 pew with everything, and, you know, you figure out your patterns and codes or whatever that you got to do. But that's where like restaurant and hospo, just like particularly as a young person looking for work before qualifications, before finding that space, hospo was just so not for me. I was like, that just looks like utter chaos. No. Whether it's a KFC or a McDonald's or a cafe, I just never applied for a job there. I just wouldn't even look at it.
It is definitely not in my skill set in any way, shape or form.
Yeah.
I think the people that do well in there are just amazing, because I don't know how their brains work.
Mysteries of the mind. Yeah. So interesting.
We don't have the buzzing. That's fine.
Hold on. Is the buzzing this?
No, I was just thinking in my head, like when I'm in a restaurant, my ears start to buzz and I can't on anything.
Oh yeah, I'm so bad at like I guess the auditory processing sort of stuff when it comes to all that, because I'm not very good at processing verbal information unless I've got my full focus. That's why it's like I even need to write down what people are saying, or find another way. If I get asked to do a task, or like proofread something, it's like, send it to me. Don't read it out to me, because I'll be like, yeah, fair enough. But yeah, it's that. And even in my diagnosis, one of the fun ones was I like to have my back, you know, a lot of it is feeling safe as well, but have your back to like the back of the restaurant. I don't like that whoosh of people walking behind you. They're not physically touching you, but I described it as the whoosh. And I think the psychologist who diagnosed me was like, yeah, that's pretty autistic of you. So it was like I could physically feel it, almost kind of like goosebumps on your back sort of thing. Of just knowing someone's walking behind me, and it's kind of, whether it's just the air pressure changing for a moment, I don't know, but I could feel it, and it's just like, ugh. It's almost like someone creeping up behind you and like, you know, going like, ugh, on your shoulder. It's like, no, I don't like it.
No. Do you use the onomatopoeia quite a lot? Like I discovered that I verbalize the sound of the thing that I want people to do quite often.
Yeah, I definitely. Any sound. I've got a lot of like echolalia as well. It's like, it's so funny. Like even, you know, like sounds, like definitely like things that happen. Like if it was a package and a crunch, I can be like, it was kind of like crunch, crunch, crunch. It's not just crunch, it's crunch, crunch, crunch. But then even with that, hearing sounds, like if I find something funny, entertaining, and really in any sort of way, I have to say it. And sometimes it's like really long, full sentences, and then I get halfway and I'm like, oh, but I have to finish it now. Why did I enjoy that? It's not even just like 2 words. Because then you can't leave it unfinished. Like,
we need to finish
sentences have rules. You've got to get to the full stop. So it was like, yeah, it'd be like, oh, this like big joke that someone said on a TV show, and then I've just got to say the whole joke. And like I can see my partner being like, yeah, I heard it. I did actually, we're watching the same show, but I'm like, but I just need to make sure you did, because I found that very, very funny.
I am the worst joke teller. Are you the worst joke teller? Like, if there's a setup,
like stage jokes, like you
people
stage them.
find me funny, but I'm not doing that deliberately as such.
Yeah.
But if I have to tell a joke, I fuck it up. Like,
oh yeah, completely.
The punchline comes first. I start laughing before I finished anything.
Yep. Rehearsed jokes, not for me, but everyone still thinks, as you said, think I'm funny and laugh at me. Yeah. And it's just like, and in a nice way as well. It's not even like, laughing at me, I guess with me, but I'm not laughing. I don't know. But
it's just like close the definition of laughing.
Yeah. Yeah, you got it right. But yeah, it's so weird because you're just like, I'm a funny person, but I can't do the funny. Like, it's just happens. And then even you've got to like mentally figure out why they're laughing. And if it is like you did something really silly, and maybe that's something you need to remove from your like, I guess, like repertoire, and work into masking when you need it.
Yeah.
Or whether it's, actually, that's kind of goofy. That's kind of funny. I've got a sense of humor. Look at me go.
Yeah, that's it. Sarcasm was my go-to once I started working at the bank. People thought I was very sarcastic. And so that became my thing. It took me ages to get out of it because I wasn't being sarcastic. People just thought I was a bitch. But, sarcasm hides a lot. And you can get away with a lot when you're sarcastic because people think that's very witty and intelligent.
That's it, isn't it? Yeah, there's definitely those sorts of, I don't know, was it like functions of phrase or interaction that if you can pull on them and it's like, I know what I'm doing. That was sarcastic.
I got that one. Yeah, it's frustrating when you change the crowd and you do the same thing, but you don't get the same results. I'm like, I did it the same way the first time. Time. They laughed at that.
And then, and you do, and you kind of sit there almost like the sort of thing, and you're just sitting there like,
wink, wink, nudge, hey.
Do you want me to say it again? And then I heard it.
I think my common phrase right now is, well, I found that funny. I think I'm very amusing.
Yeah, I do that a lot too. I'm like, yeah, that was funny. You didn't laugh, but I'm funny. That's funny.
Yeah. Oh, good. And the other thing that I've started to do is I want you to clap now. I think I've done something really good.
Okay.
For somebody and they don't do anything.
A round of applause, please.
Yeah. I want you to clap now. And even though I know that I've told them to clap, that clap makes me feel good.
May not be genuine, but it feels genuine. It's
great.
Right. It's great.
And that's the effect that I'm looking for. So that'll do.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's so funny. Like, there's just those things, isn't it, where it's just like, I don't know. It's so hard to describe, particularly to like neurotypical people, like the intensity of just like the most simplest interactions or things or whatever that just I mean, that's that autistic joy, right? It just like feels, whether it's like your chest or your mind or your whole body, that it's just like this thing is just so important. And, they're just like, yeah, but all I did was go, or whatever. And you're like, it's just like, that it's surreal, isn't it?
It is. It makes life fun, right?
Yeah.
Because then you can cut the sulk of nobody recognized what I was doing. Nobody thought that was special. Why is nobody noticing me? So much easier if you just go, I want you to praise me now.
Yeah.
And then
that's it. That direct communication, right? It's just, yeah.
If they still don't praise me, I just say it louder.
I'm just imagining you like going up and up in volume and then just screaming, just like, clap, praise me. I did good.
I might have done that once or twice.
I see you.
But no, Gilbert and Brad are very well trained. Make mum happy, clap now. Okay.
It's like both like on the iPad or watching TV, and they're just like,
yeah, pretty much. And I'd be like, yay.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was my
I think it's really interesting to explore, you know, and because it wasn't really my experience at all. Is that like that neurodivergent household where everybody's like aware and affirming and holding space for that. Where I mean, working with clients and families where that is the case, or they're striving to get there, you know, it's a journey, like being affirming in any space, but from a perspective of someone that hasn't experienced that, it's just so cool to see those like that, those little interactions where everybody just kind of, flows on with what they need, and, you know, give each other space when they need it, or, you know, if you want to run around in circles, go for it, you know. But yeah, I don't know, it's really cool.
Nice. And I think that kind of work that you're doing, that I'm doing, and living in those neuroaffirming spaces and acceptance, and, you know, both of us now starting to just ask for what we want rather than hedging around it and finding a nice way to say it, means that the next generation won't have to go through that trauma therapy before getting their diagnosis, right?
Exactly. And it's huge just to be able to like directly communicate your needs and when you're not okay and things like that. And when you have those people around you that are accepting to that or understanding to that, it's such a whole different dynamic. You know, for example, you know, my partner and in my workplace, it's, do you need space right now? Yes. Okay, cool. You know, are you mad at me? And then even like, because my partner's a very, you know, direct communicator, and I'm very attuned to those kind of like fluctuations in behavior. So it's like, oh, are you mad? Did I do something? And then it's like, no, I'm just tired. And then it's like, okay, cool.
I will ignore that.
And I know that we both mean what we say.
Yeah.
Which, you know, takes time, and that's trust and all of the things. But it's just, once you can cut the BS, it's just huge. Even in a workplace, it's like, can't talk right now, focusing. You know, in any other workplace, it would be like, oh, that was rude. Ooh, stay away from her. Where it's like, oh, that's, and, you know, even with, you know, like working in the space that I do, it's like, oh, yeah, that's right, you're focusing. Let me know when you're out of focus. I'll come back.
Yeah.
And it's not looked at as anything rude. You know, there's whatever it might be. I need space right now. You put your, you know, your noise cancelling headphones on. It's not that you're being antisocial or whatever it might be, that it's just commonplace. It's just natural.
Yeah. Oh, and that lovely world that we will be creating and living in.
That's it. Yeah.
I think
a few more generations, and, you know, who knows what the world could look like.
Yeah. And it's so quickly changing. Changing so quickly. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, if we think where, I guess, the perceptions of like disability as a whole have evolved, and then we're, you know, thinking how visible autism is becoming, where before it, you know, it was just stereotypes in a movie, and before that it was, you know, institutionalized or undiagnosed.
Yeah,
you know, there's just
man down the road.
So much change and growth of knowledge in this space, that you just go, if we keep this up, like, we're not too far off from, you know, breaking down some huge barriers. And with that, thinking even how much of that affirming stuff or change or whatever, don't be scared of it, or think that the world is suddenly going to be, I guess, where the world wasn't designed for us as autistic people, that we're going to design the world and you won't fit as a neurotypical.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought that some of those accommodations or things might actually benefit you as well? You'll have to let, you can let a bit of your guard down, or you can affirm your feelings and needs more as well. Like, this world changing around this stuff isn't just about, I guess, where people go, oh, it's just all catering, it's just all pandering and making everyone feel special. It's like, but what if we all did feel special in our own way and we were appreciated? I mean,
wouldn't that be nice?
Is that bad? Is that a bad thing?
Well, how would you like the world to look exactly?
Yeah. Do you want us all to be miserable and all be the same person? Because, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of that out there, of course, but, you know, it'd be really cool to just, I guess, let these perspectives and let this, different varieties of knowledge and different strengths and all of that flourish rather than be hidden away.
Well, that's right. Yes.
Look at us too. Utopia!
There will never be utopia, because there's never perfection, right?
Yeah.
But the opportunity to attain your highest potential is what
that's it. And everyone's perfection looks different, so it's just kind of innate that the world can't be perfect. Like it just will never be, because everybody's perfect is different. But I guess that's where
be a little bit less shit for everyone.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, make the world less shit, and then we can move towards accepting diversity and all of that. It's just like, sounds like if you weigh up the other options, sounds like a good direction to head.
I think so.
I'll put that on our list for systemic change. Make the world less shit.
That could be the slogan. NeuroWorks.
We'll start. NeuroWorks, social work, systemic change sector. Make the world less shit.
Look, I've saved you money in marketing already. Fantastic.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me. It's been awesome. It's really cool to do, something like this where it's just flowy and unscripted, like one of the other, I guess, podcast / webinar sort of things that I've done was very professional, have a presentation and a slideshow sort of stuff, and just, rehearsed and on the spot, where it's like, wow, this is really cool, and it'd be really cool to even just see, who else might like to come along, and just let it all flow. It's cool. Anyway, thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your time, energy, and sharing.
No
it can
worries.
be a little bit daunting when we don't have the boundaries and the barriers and stuff, but like you said, well, like I told you, this is just talking twaddle. It's just a blip. See what comes.
Well, that's it. And it was very daunting and, very on brand for, I guess my neurotype. I was watching a few of them last night and even taking notes. And do you want to know what one of the notes was? Be authentic. I scripted and wrote down, be authentic. I'm like, and then I read it back and I'm like, I need to script being authentic. It was just these like little just themes of what was coming up and how it might flow to feel like I knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
But then like reading it back and it just being like, say how you feel about stuff, or like be authentic, and it's just like, I really didn't get a script out of that, did I? But it's cool. It's really cool. And it's, we have awesome chats and all of that. So it's just like, now you can see what it's like when we chat. And I hope you enjoyed, everybody.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much. I can't do it any other way, because otherwise it just won't get produced.
Oh, yeah. That's it.
But you've been very generous with your time and energy and effort.
Oh, good.
So it's much appreciated.
My pleasure.
And we can say bye for now.
Bye. Thank you for having me.